Hello, this is Jake Vondelinde, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning in the Office of Educational Equity. In this video, I'll be sharing the Achievement Report with information from the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessments and FastBridge Assessments for the 2023-2024 school year. In the spring of 2023, we adopted 5 district goals and key strategies, and in the next few slides, I will share the ones that are the most relevant to this report. The first is Goal 1. Our graduates are prepared to achieve their goals and aspirations, and the strategies for this include ensuring students are college and career ready, delivering a challenging, joyful, and safe learning environment, and delivering innovative, effective practices and systems. The next is Goal 2. Our learners contribute to an equitable, caring society. The strategies for Goal 2 include cultivating student engagement and joy in learning, supporting learner resiliency with student social and emotional learning and mental health, amplifying student leadership and voice in decision-making, and preparing learners to be racially and socially responsive. And finally, we have Goal 3. We are a culturally responsive, inclusive, anti-racist district. The strategies for this goal include ensuring educator commitment to anti-racist practices, hire and retain a diverse workforce, develop equitable leaders, develop a culturally responsive evaluation system, and build a culture of belonging where all feel welcome, included, and safe. Before we look at our achievement, we'll review some key demographic areas. A reminder that this report is a look back at the last school year. We receive our Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment scores in the summer and report on them publicly in the fall. The first few slides show our changing demographics and how we are less comparable in our student groups to the overall statewide averages. The graphic at the top of this slide shows the percentage of students who receive educational benefits, comparing our students in Roseville to the statewide average. Just a reminder that educational benefits are benefits that students receive if their family income is at or below certain thresholds. This can include free or reduced meals, transportation, athletics and activities, and other areas. For educational benefits, the trend shows that since the turn of the century, we have more than tripled in our students that qualify, and now about half of our students qualify. The state has also shown a steady increase from the year 2000. In terms of our multilingual learners, in Roseville and in the state of Minnesota, we were similar at the turn of the century, but Roseville has outpaced the state and continues to show an increase in the percent of our students who are multilingual learners. This slide looks at our students with an individualized education program and students who identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. For students with an IEP, both Roseville and the state have shown increases over the years. The state average continues to be a little higher than Roseville. For BIPOC students, students in Roseville and the state continue to be more racially diverse. However, Roseville has outpaced the state in the percentage of BIPOC students. We have about tripled since the turn of the century, whereas the state has more than doubled. As we showed through the last few slides, we've become less comparable to the state. However, we are comparable to other communities and districts around the state of Minnesota. We often look at the data from these districts to see how we compare in terms of student achievement. The districts that you see on this slide include Bloomington, Burnsville, North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale, Osseo, Robbinsdale, Austin, Inver Grove Heights, West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Eagan, and the state of Minnesota overall. This graph shows all of the demographic comparison areas that we discussed on the previous slides. Also to note, these school districts have around the same overall student enrollment as Roseville. We will start with a review of our reading data. This slide shows the trend of Roseville area schools in blue compared to the statewide average in red. This graph shows 5 years of trend data, all based on the MCA3 reading test. You will notice that the 2021 school year data is included with an asterisk, as we had a limited number of students taking the test that year because of the pandemic, and the amount of students was not representative of our typical testing. You'll also notice that 2020 is not included, That was the year that all state testing was canceled. The tested grades for the MCA reading are 3 through 8 and 10. In the graph, you will see that we were consistently following the statewide trend since 2019, but had a dip over the last school year of about 3 percentage points. Our current proficiency level is 45.7% compared to the state at about 50%, which makes us about 4 percentage points below the statewide average and continues to show a decline since the pandemic. This slide shows Roseville area schools compared to Minnesota in reading proficiency by grade. In reading, we saw proficiency gains only for students in grade 3. All other grade levels decreased from their 2023 proficiency levels. Statewide, only grades 6, 7, and 10 show marginal proficiency increases. Compared to statewide grade levels, all of our grade levels perform below the statewide averages for their respected grade level. This slide shows trend data for our students by race and ethnicity. From school year 2023, multiracial students were the only group of students that saw an increase in proficiency. We see racial disparities increase for Asian, Black, and American Indian Native American students, and we saw decreases for our multiracial students. Our racial disparity between students of color and white students persists and ranges from 19 to 42 percentage points. This slide provides trend data for our students who qualify for educational benefits, students with an individual education plan, or IEP, and students who are English language learners, or multilingual learners. For all of these student groups, we saw reading achievement decreases compared to 2023. This slide compares proficiency for our student groups to the statewide average for that group. The 2023 results are in dark blue and the 2024 is in light blue. For this school year, except for white students, all of our student groups performed below their statewide counterpart in reading proficiency. This slide provides us with a look at how we relate to our comparable districts and includes data from 2023 in dark blue and 2024 in light blue. Even with an achievement decrease, we continued to perform better than most other comparable districts in reading. And we also see that most comparable districts had a decrease in reading achievement. This slide shows our school's reading achievement over a 3-year trend. Edgerton and Falcon Heights increased in reading proficiency this year, while the rest of our buildings saw decreases. Since the pandemic, Central Park and Falcon Heights have increased their proficiency beyond their 2019 levels. Roz significantly increased MCA test participation this year, and the participation was close to pre-pandemic levels, providing us with more comparable data. This slide shows A reading growth for all students, mostly at the elementary levels. A reading is an adaptive reading test which focuses on reading skill and comprehension. Growth in FastBridge is broken into 4 categories: aggressive, typical, modest, and flat. We want to see low flat growth and high aggressive growth to see changes in proficiency. Overall, in A reading, we see equal amounts of flat and modest growth with typical and aggressive growth. Half of our students fall into the aggressive and typical, and half into the modest and flat growth. Compared with the 2022-23 school year, we see a flat growth increase with a decrease in typical growth. This is the same data in the previous slide, except it is disaggregated by race and ethnicity. By race and ethnicity, all groups increased in flat growth over the previous year, and we saw increases in aggressive growth for Asian, white, and multiracial students. The highest aggressive growth rates were seen by our Hispanic students. This slide provides more FastBridge data. These 2 different tests are provided at our elementary levels and are individually administered to students. In early reading, students show their basic beginning reading skills in K and 1. In the CBM reading, students read a passage to an assessor. These charts show growth levels over multiple years. In early reading this year, we saw increased levels of flat growth with decreased levels of aggressive growth overall. In CBM reading, when compared to the 22-23 school year, we see an increase in flat growth and a decrease in aggressive growth. This slide shows the same FastBridge tests, early reading and CBM reading, but only for the 2024 school year and broken down by race and ethnicity. In early reading by race ethnicity, we see our Asian, Black, and Hispanic students increased in flat growth and decrease in aggressive growth from the previous year, while white students and multiracial students show continued low flat growth but a decrease in aggressive growth. In CBM reading, for most student groups, we saw increases in flat growth with decreases in aggressive growth, although our Hispanic students remained even in their flat growth and aggressive growth from the previous year. Here are some high-level reading points to remember. We saw a decrease in our proficiency by 3 percentage points. We are about 4 percentage points below the state. We outperformed most of our comparable districts. Our grades 3 increased proficiency while all other grades showed a decrease. Edgerton and Falcon Heights increased from 2023, and Central Park and Falcon Heights proficiency levels are above their pre-pandemic levels. Our racial disparities increased, except for our multiracial students. And in FastBridge, our students' aggressive growth and flat growth didn't provide proficiency changes. We know based on our data over many years that we need to improve our reading proficiency. We also know that our instructional practices in helping students learn how to read must change. We've declared in our district that literacy is a social justice issue. We've begun working on changes to our instruction and curriculum. We've invested significant amounts of time and money in professional development around the reading practices involved with the science of reading as well as structured literacy. Almost all of our teachers in kindergarten through 4th grade have been trained in LETRS, which stands for Language Essentials for Reading and Spelling, and is training based on the science of reading. This has been a significant lift for our teachers, as it is a 2-year training with around 150 hours of learning. We've coupled that training with curriculum and resources that match the structured literacy approach and is based in the science of reading. We are also growing this approach beyond our elementary schools into our secondary schools. We are now providing reading screening for all K through 8 students and providing them with interventions based on their needs. We've also started our first cohort of teachers in secondary being trained in the science of reading and structured literacy with a program from the University of Minnesota called Carry All. This first year, we are training our special educators, multilingual learner teachers, and intervention teachers in grades 7 through 12. We will also be working on our alignment of English language arts standards and resources this year to make sure we are aligned to the implementation of the 2020 standards. We continue to weave AVID strategies into our teaching practices at all of our grade levels, including the AVID practices of Wicker, which include writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. As you know, this is a long journey for us, and the results will change over time. This was the first year of implementation for our new curriculum and resources to support our work. Another support we've added this year is hiring a district-wide Equity Advancement Literacy Lead with the sole focus to improve our reading achievement for our students. We plan to do this through continued professional development, coaching, and aligning our literacy resources. Now we'll shift to our math achievement data. This slide includes 5 years of trend data, all based on the MCA3 math test. Roseville Area Schools is in blue, and the Minnesota statewide average is in red. Roseville Area Schools math scores overall remained unchanged from the 2023 results, and the state remained even as well. Our math scores for 2024 show a proficiency rate of 37.9%, whereas the state proficiency was 45.5%. We are 7.6 percentage points below the state, which is the same as 2023 and is also about the same difference we were from the state prior to the pandemic. This data is comparing our overall MCA scores to the statewide average for each grade. Our math scores improved over school year 2023 in grades 4, 6, and 7. Grade 4, which increased almost 5 percentage points, and grade 7, with an almost 10 percentage point increase, showed the most improvement. Statewide, grades 6 and 8 were the only grades with marginal gains. This slide provides trend data for all of our student groups by race and ethnicity. We see proficiency increases from 2023 for our Black and Hispanic students, while all other student groups showed marginal gains or decreases from the previous year. Racial disparities for our Black and Hispanic students decreased, while Asian and American Indian students increased, and multiracial students remained unchanged. Racial disparities have decreased from pre-pandemic levels for Hispanic, Black, and multiracial students. Even with these improvements, our racial disparities continue and range from 20 to 39 percentage points. This is another trendline slide with student groups and shows our students who qualify for educational benefits, students with an individual education program, and students who are multilingual learners. We see proficiency increases from 2023 for students with an IEP and multilingual learners. This slide compares our district proficiency percent for each of our student groups compared to the statewide proficiency percentages for that group. American Indian and Native American students and white students are the only groups in Roseville that performed above their statewide counterparts. This slide looks at Roseville area schools to our comparison districts for 2023 in dark red and 2024 in pink. Roseville outperformed 5 comparable districts, and most districts showed only slight differences from 2023. This slide shows MCA math scores for the past 3 years for our sites that take the MCA. Central Park, Edgerton, Falcon Heights, Harambee, Parkview, and Rams all increased in math proficiency from 2023. With their proficiency increases over the past 3 years, Central Park is now 9 percentage points above their 2019 pre-pandemic proficiency rate. The next 2 slides switch from MCA data to Fastbridge math data. In this slide, we're looking at growth for all students tested. In Fastbridge A-Math growth, we see fairly consistent ranges in growth from 2023, with 20% of our students in aggressive growth, 35% in typical, 28% in modest, and 17% in flat. This year, the data includes all students in grades 2 through 8 for A-Math. This slide provides data on growth by race and ethnicity for A-Math. Again, this test is given to mostly elementary students. In A-Math by race, we saw increases in flat growth for Hispanic and multiracial students, and increased typical growth for Asian students, and increases in aggressive growth for Black and white students. Here are some high-level summary points to remember. Our MCA scores remained even with 2023, and so did the state. In grades 4 and 7, we saw large proficiency increases on the MCA. We saw racial disparity decreases for our Black and Hispanic students, and also Black, Hispanic, and multiracial students have decreased their racial disparity since the pandemic. Our racial disparities continue to be persistently too high. Central Park, Edgerton, Falcon Heights, Harambee, Parkview, and Rams all increased math proficiency this year. Our math growth percentages were consistent with 2023. In response to our math results, we continue to grow participation in cognitively guided instruction, or CGI, which is a math professional development that improves educators' response to students' mathematical understanding. We also have a dedicated math department at Rams that's focused on collaboration around proficiency in the math standards at the middle level. They're working to improve student math skills and their own instruction by focusing on improving their inter-rater reliability in assessing students' mathematical understanding. We're also beginning math curriculum review in this school year. We're forming committees of elementary and secondary math instructors to begin reviewing their data, designing new programs, and aligning new materials and resources across these next few years. This is in line with the new math state standards to be implemented in the 2027-2028 school year. We also saw increased participation in the MCA at Roseville Area High School this year, as the test was provided during the regular school day rather than a testing day for students. And now we are now providing math screening in grades kindergarten through 8th, with some individual supports provided for students. We'll briefly review a summary of MCA science data in this next slide. The tested grades for the Science MCA include 5th, 8th, and high school, usually in grade 10 when students have completed their biology course. We saw slight decreases for both the state and for Roseville area schools in science. We remain about 7 percentage points below the statewide proficiency. This year, we outperformed 5 out of our 8 comparable districts. By our grade levels, we saw an increase at the high school level. 8th grade remained about the same, and 5th grade decreased about 3 percentage points. When looking at race, we see increases for Asian, multiracial, and American Indian Native American students by more than 3 percentage points. Well, you've made it to the end of our achievement report. Thanks so much for watching our achievement report screencast.